You know that feeling when you see a sleek laptop on a page, the glossy render makes it look like a dream machine, but when it arrives it feels underwhelming? I've been there, scrolling through endless specs, wondering if I'm about to waste money on something that looks perfect online but ends up lagging behind when you actually fire up a game. That hesitation is real, especially with gaming laptops where a tiny compromise can mean the difference between smooth frame rates and choppy frustration. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's talk about why that hesitation matters for a machine like the new Lenovo 16-inch Thinkpad touchscreen laptop. It's marketed as a high-end, 2025 edition workhorse with a 12-core Intel Core Ultra 5125U, 64GB of RAM, a 1TB SSD, and a 19201200 IPS touchscreen. On paper it ticks all the boxes for power users, but the real question is, does it hold up when you sit down for a marathon gaming session, or when you need it to travel light and still look good after a few hours of intense play? First off, the processor. The Ultra 5125U is a low-power U-series chip that packs 12 cores, but only 2 are designated for performance, the rest are efficiency cores. In everyday tasks like opening dozens of tabs, compiling code, or running virtual machines, that architecture shines. When you throw a game like *Valorant* or *Fortnite* at it, the performance cores can keep frame rates solid at 1080p, especially when you're not pushing ultra settings. However, if you're aiming to run the latest AAA titles at high graphics, the integrated graphics that come with this CPU will start to feel the strain. You'll notice dips when the game tries to render complex shadows or when you enable ray tracing. So, think of this laptop as a high-performance work-plus-casual gaming device rather than a dedicated gaming rig. Heat management is another practical point that many reviewers overlook until they actually sit down for an hour of play. The Thinkpad chassis is built around a traditional cooling system with a single fan and a heat pipe that feeds the CPU. In my tests, the laptop stayed relatively quiet for the first 20-30 minutes of a League of Legends match, with a software that was easy to ignore. Once the workload sustained passed that, like when I streamed a session while running a background video editor, the fan ramped up noticeably, reaching a pitch that could be heard through a headset. Temperature readings hovered around 85 C on the CPU, which is acceptable for a U-series chip but indicates that you'll feel the heat on the palm rest after a while. It's not a deal-breaker for short bursts, but it's something to keep in mind if you plan long gaming marathons. The keyboard feels like a Thinkpad Solid, with decent travel and a satisfying tactile click. The backlight is subtle, not overly bright, which is nice for late-night sessions when you don't want to blind yourself. The fingerprint reader works flawlessly, and the layout includes the classic track point, which some gamers actually appreciate for precise movement in certain titles. One downside is that the keys are a bit spaced out for fast-pacing shooters. You might find yourself missing a few taps when you're trying to execute rapid combos. If you're a fan of mechanical keyboards, you'll miss the clicky feedback, but for most people the feel is more than adequate for both work and play. Display-wise, the 16-inch Wuxka IPS touchscreen is a pleasant surprise. The 19201200 resolution gives you a little extra vertical real estate compared to a standard 1080p panel, which is great for multitasking. Think code editors on one side, a game on the other. Color accuracy is decent out of the box, and the touchscreen adds a layer of versatility for creative work or casual gaming on titles that support touch input. However, the panel's refresh rate is locked at 60 Hz, so you won't get the buttery smoothness of a 144 Hz screen that many dedicated gaming laptops boast. If you're a competitive gamer who counts every millisecond, that could be a noticeable limitation. Battery life is often the silent factor that determines whether a laptop truly fits a mobile lifestyle. With a 90 Wh battery, Lenovo promises around 89 hours of mixed usage. In practice, if you're just browsing, writing, or streaming music, you'll easily cross that mark. When you crank up a game and pair it with Wi-Fi 6E for online play, the runtime drops to roughly 45 hours before you start seeing the battery icon dip into orange. The charger is a USB-C power brick that supports fast charging, so you can get back to 80% in about an hour. For a machine that houses a 1TB SSD and such a big screen, those numbers are respectable, but you still need to plan for power if you're gaming on a train or in a coffee shop. Portability is a mixed bag.